Macca's Guides.
Hey guys, Macca here with my collectibles guide for Gears 5. In this video, I'll show you all 90 of the collectible locations in the campaign. You'll unlock an achievement after grabbing all of them. You may want all of them for the backstory, or you may just want to grab 100% completion in the story, and these will be required. In the bottom right hand corner, you can see a counter of the total amount of collectibles we have, as well as in the bottom left hand corner, you can see the act and chapter that we're currently on, as well as the specific name of the collectible we're going for. At the very beginning of the game, as soon as you gain control of your character, walk forward and a little bit to your right to find these extremely well hidden, weathered spectacles sitting on a rock. Now from that location, we can also go up the hill towards the direction of the mission. Instead, we're going to keep to the left hand side and go down this small hill in order to find the Onyx Guard challenge coin. Now keep in mind there are some open world type levels in this game a little bit later on, but for now most of the stuff is linear and you will be playing the same things as me. As you make your way further into the level, you'll notice a waterfall in front of you. You'll make your way through some buildings, and as you gain access into this hallway, just keep your eye on the left hand side in order to find the wellness advisory poster brightly glowing on the wall. We will then make our way into this facility. We'll get Jack to open up the door for us, and instead of proceeding up the stairs to the left, make sure you go directly in front of you into the infirmary. Here on the right hand side on the ground you can find a fallen cog, and on them will be some cog tags, which I accidentally picked up off screen, but you can see them on screen here. And then what we can do is go from this location out of the infirmary and up the stairs. Once we reach the top of the stairs, what we'll want to do is take a left-hand turn and go through the open door. Once in here, just follow as deep as you can go into the set of rooms. There is a small back room, and on the desk in this back room, you can find the chairman's wristwatch. You'll then reach this open and long kind of corridor. There will be a fight here. I've cleared out the enemies, obviously. And before you make your way to the far side and open up the door, you want to make sure you go to the left side, and near the end of the room there is a door, and we can follow that door around and find the Lightmass missile strike authorization sitting near some consoles. Now, if you played the old Gears, you might remember that a lot of these collectibles were marked by Crimson Omen icons on the wall, but in Gears 5, those are reserved for something else, so you won't actually find collectibles near Crimson Omens anymore. Nonetheless, from the previous location, you'll get Jack to open up the door in order for you to get to the next area. Directly in front of you as you enter, you should be able to find the Hammer of Dawn blueprints on the desk. We are now in Act 1, Chapter 2, and as soon as you gain control of your character, walk forward, and before joining up with your group, make sure you grab the photograph from the desk where everyone was kind of standing before they started walking away. Now we're going to do this in one take. From that desk, you'll want to work your way into that back room up the stairs. There are two collectibles to grab here. We're going to first go to the left-hand side and grab the big blueprints sitting on the box. That is the Mark III Lancer blueprints with the grenade launcher on it. And then what we'll do is we'll turn around and go to the opposite side of the room before interacting with our main objective on the desk there. And we can pick up the trauma record for Marcus Fenix. It's a white piece of paper and actually extremely difficult to see, but make sure you pick it up before you move on to the next part of the mission. Eventually you will spawn in a gym, and there will be a robot behind you that you can kind of interact with. Feel free to interact with anything that has a magnifying glass on it. However, these aren't collectibles. These are just kind of points of interest. In the gym, though, on the wall, you can find the gym notice to trainees, so make sure you pick it up before moving on. From the location of the gym, we will continue to our next collectible. Walk forward. There's a bunch of stuff in the room in front of you can kind of grab on the way if you want. We're going to ignore it for now and instead turn to the right-hand side of the hallway and run to the end and go through the open door into the lobby of this area. On the far end of the lobby, there is a blue kind of cushion seat, and on there you can find the DBI Marketing Brochure collectible. We should be at 12 out of 90, so keep that in mind. And we then move on to Act 1, Chapter 3. As soon as we gain control of our character, directly in front of us are the cog tags of the fallen Raven pilot. Whenever I do pick up a collectible, you'll see a percentage in the top left corner. Sometimes it will match your percentage, sometimes it won't. I really filmed this video in chunks, so you might want to, remember that when you are going through the collectibles here. Just from those fallen cog tags, walk forward in the next room to find a magazine, and then proceed forward, and you'll have a big helicopter crash into the side of the building. You'll take out some enemies here, and you'll walk up the stairs and hook around to the left in order to find a literature book, and or it's actually, I don't even know what this is actually exactly. This might be a newspaper or something. A little bit later on, you'll go through a hallway, and at the end of the hallway, it'll kind of open up into a room with a ton of people. There are some walk and talk sections at this point of the game, but before crawling through the window space, make sure you look at the side room here, and you can find the welcome package collectible here. We then have one of the trickiest collectibles in the game, in my opinion. Once you reach the street level, we've gone through all the battles, and don't proceed through the gate to the next area. Instead, go to the building where the snipers were, and then go upstairs. Once you reach the top of the stairs, go directly forward and look down and into the drawers of the cupboard in order to find this collectible. Shout out to my buddy Loveboat Gopher, who did help me with this collectible specifically, as well as a bunch of other ones. I probably wouldn't have this guide up in time for you guys without him. Later on in that chapter, you will come to a Condor crash near a couple of bridges. As you make your way through the wreckage, keep your eyes open on the left-hand side on the ground for some cog tags. I accidentally picked them up without recording, but they are right here, and then I'll show you the collectible on screen. They are the Fallen Gear at Condor crash cog tags. A little bit later on in the chapter, you will come to a street. You'll notice a music store on your right, as well as what I believe is like a juice store on your left. At the end of the road, though, there is a bookstore. You'd figure there'd be a ton of stuff to explore here, but there's actually not much going on. It is a well-designed area, but there is a collectible on the book rack near the middle. We then move on to Act 1, Chapter 4. And as we get our way to the Grand Hotel, instead of going into the door, you want to drop down and go to the left, and then go into the garage. At the end of the garage, you can find the memo, and it'll be sitting on a small table. From the previous collectible at the garage, you'll open a set of doors into pitch black darkness. Jack will light up the room, and directly in front of you, there will be a fallen cog with a set of cog tags that you'll want to pick up. This is just after you open up a door into pitch black darkness, not far from the previous collectible in the hotel garage. Then what we'll do is we'll reach this kind of large, open lobby type area of the hotel. And before going up the stairs, make sure you look under them in order to find the lost horse plush. This should be number 22 out of 90 for you if you're following along. From the horse plush, you'll want to make your way upstairs, and before crawling through the crawl space, there's a desk on the right-hand side with a purple cloth on it. This is for the patients of the settlement, or parents of the settlement rather, and we'll want to make sure we pick up the birth pamphlet. We'll then come through another set of doors. There are a couple of cutscenes that happen. We are now inside of like a musical production, and we're making our way to the main stage. On our way there, we'll take a left-hand turn into what looks like wardrobe, and then take another left-hand turn into a side room in order to find the song lyrics sitting on a vanity. From that previous collectible, we'll want to turn around and then make our way into the direction of the mission, through the makeup section, and then into what seems to be like the backstage section. There are a couple of lights on the left-hand side that brightly shine, as well as a bust, and there is a worn lighter here we can grab. We've then made our way onto the stage or the backstage, and don't open the curtains just yet. Instead, we'll want to pick up the collectible. On the opposite side of where you enter the room from, you can find a scroll prop sitting on a storage container here. Next up, we are in Act 2, Chapter 1, which begins with a long kind of walk and talk section where we can grab 8 out of the 10 collectibles for this chapter. So as soon as you gain control, turn to your right and go down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, take another right-hand turn in order to find the hand-carved riftworm flute. We'll then be making our way in the general direction of our main objective. There's really not that many choices in terms of where you go. You'll notice a large kind of bone statue in front of you, as well as a furnace to your right as you approach it. So make sure you grab the collectible license plate near the furnace before moving on. From the previous collectible of that license plate, we're now going to move forward and go in the direction of that giant kind of bone statue. And we're actually going to walk past it and go to the left in order to find the lost gear helmet sitting on the ground in a corner by some bushes. You'll then move on to the next area, and a small boy will see you, call you names, and run away. Where they run away from, he will leave behind a wooden toy lancer sitting and up against this kind of block right here. I already picked it up, but here it is on screen. And then what we can do is actually move on from this wooden toy lancer and go down the hill, continue in the direction of the boy's house, which is kind of on the right of the screen there. And instead we'll go into the salvage shop on the left, and we'll continue hook around the left and find I believe this is like a children's poster or something for a TV show. Eventually we will reach the stable with a bunch of horses, go past the stable and into the first room in this new area. As the door opens, you'll unveil a mandate of rules on the left-hand side hanging up on some lockers before moving on. Eventually, you will move on. You'll have a vision. It'll get very bright. And directly in front of you, before going down the stairs, you'll notice this building that lines the staircase. Inside on the main desk there, you can find a note to the chief. As you reach the very bottom of the area, you'll notice that there's some gates to your left as well as some water. Don't interact with that area just yet. Instead, make sure you pick up this letter on the right-hand side before interacting with the gate in order to progress the mission. There will eventually be a giant fight, and you'll be working your way up the hill. This is not far from where that furnace was, I believe. If you make your way up to the left, you'll notice that there is a silverback workshop, and you can actually use this to defeat the enemies. But before you grab it, make sure you grab the collectible nearby, and then we can move on. After that big fight is over, you'll end up in this dark room where you have to turn on the lights. Feel free to do that, but before doing that, I would probably recommend you grab the cog tags. They'll kind of be behind you and to your left, sitting on a bench, and they are the cog tags of Oscar Diaz. We now reach Act 2, Chapter 2, which kind of plays a little bit like an open world. If you are using this guide to mop up, make sure you're using the names of the collectibles in the bottom left corner, as the way they're displayed in the menu is not always the fastest way to get them, which is the way it's shown in the video. There will be an optional mission during this chapter where you can find a train tunnel as shown on the map. Once you reach the train tunnel, there may be an enemy you have to defeat, but once you defeat them, you should be able to enter the train from the back in order to find the grind lift maintenance notes. If you exit the train tunnel and then follow the train tracks, you can end up in this location on the map where there is a busted out train car. So once you are in this spot, again, just down the train tracks from that tunnel we were just in, go inside and you should be able to find a faded photograph sitting next to a fallen soldier. And at that point, we can move on to the next collectible. Now we're going to backtrack kind of a little bit in the direction that we kind of came into the area from, and we want to go to this exact location on the map, not far from the large gate that we will end up using in order to proceed to the next area. But here you'll notice that there are a couple of like fallen trucks, and near one of them you can find the Islander's lost earring sitting on the ground next to his torque bow. Still in Act 2, Chapter 2, we are now very close to our main objective on the main map, which is to reach New Hope. There will also be a secondary objective called Outsiders, I believe. And as we enter this area, there will be a small camp to our left. And here we can find a collectible sitting on the ground near the campfire. We are now in Act 2, Chapter 3, which is a very linear level. We'll end up going back to the open world later, but for now, we'll enter this large room with a frozen down kind of lobby area. And if we go to the back room in the right-hand side, we can find a collectible on the table before busting down the door and then dropping down a hole. Once we do drop down the hole, we'll enter into what looks like a prison or hospital, and we'll exit out and then turn to the right-hand side. At the end of the hallway on your right, there will be a locked door that you can get Jack to open up by using the lock pad. Once he opens up the door for you, go inside, and in the back far corner, you can find the Sovereign Directive 10345, and we'll continue on to the next collectible location from this area. So we'll end up proceeding through the hallways, turn to the right as you exit, and in this room, there will be a bunch of like incubators. And on the left-hand side, you should be able to see the glowing collectible sitting on what looks to be some type of surgery bench. Then from there, what we can do is we can proceed in the direction of our main objective. We'll find a kids' room, and we'll be able to jump through the window of that kids' room into the next area. This is a mandatory section. As you jump through, find the patient analysis on your left sitting on a table. You'll then end up dropping down a small ledge into this kind of long and narrow hallway with a door on the right-hand side that leads to a very optional room. But in this optional room, you can find another patient analysis next to the surgery table. We will then end up dropping down a set of stairs into a new area. You can see on screen what our current objective is. I believe it's to find some AI. But we'll end up in this kind of narrow room with a bunch of what I believe are like servers or storage facilities all over and a bunch of electronic equipment. On the right-hand side, you can find a time-worn data drive before moving on to Act 2, Chapter 4, a very open world chapter where you can really do anything in any order you desire. The first thing I'm going to recommend we do is go to the Abandoned Mines side mission. P.S. It's not really a side mission because they force you to do it even if you don't do it. But we are now in the Abandoned Mines side mission on the kind of southeast of the map. And we've made our way through a significant portion of the mission. Your map is no longer available to you, by the way, while you're in the mission. But before going into the Abandoned Mines, make sure you make your way up into this watchtower and find the frayed Pouncer-Tooth necklace inside. Still in the Abandoned Mines, you'll open up a door and then end up in this room with a bunch of lockers, and your actual path to exploring the mines is on your left, but there's a small room on your right with a couple of like storage units, and in this room we can find a mining poster before moving on to like the main mine shaft. So in the main mine shaft, or whatever this area is, I guess, you'll end up coming in, and there are a couple of side rooms to your left before moving on. And in the side room, you can find a journal of a miner. So make sure you grab it. And then what we can do is just finish off the Abandoned Mine side mission, grab the item at the end, and then leave in your skiff. And we are now back in the open world, so I can show you the map again. Not far from the Abandoned Mines, kind of between the mines and the east communications tower, there's this cliff's edge. And on that cliff's edge, you can find a tank that's kind of surrounded by ice. And if you pull up to it in your skiff, you'll just hop up on the ledge and find a letter to Mama on a container there. Not far from the previous collectible, we can find the East Communication Tower substation, not far from the East Tower. And here we'll make sure that we go inside in order to grab a collectible. So it looks like this building right here. I showed you exactly where on the map you can find it. You'll go through the doors. It'll take a little bit of a cutscene to get you through them. I think this is basically just a loading screen being hidden from you. Once inside, though, in the back room, find the security memorandum. We'll then continue on in the open world area of Chapter 4, and on this location in the map, you will be able to find an old derrick site. And here, out front, before entering, right near the flag here, you can see the yellow flag, which is kind of a symbol of a side mission. A little bit to the left of it is a kind of capsule of some sort, as well as a fallen person. And there you can grab the locust tag for Krav. From this location, we're going to go into the old derrick site. And obviously, if it's your first time here, there's going to be a bunch of enemies for you to fight and defeat. And once you clear them all, you can go to the end of the area and find the grind lift actuator component. I've taken out all the enemies, so I'm just going to run through. At the back, there is what seems to be some sort of ship that is encapsulated in ice. And there is a yellow kind of panel that you can open up in order to find this component. It is technically like the end of the side mission to find this item. So as long as you complete that location, you'll have that collectible. We will then move on to another old derrick site. This one on the map is kind of in the northeast area. And as you approach it, it should unveil itself on your map. It's kind of encapsulated in a giant block of ice, as you can see in front of me here. And as we enter, on our right-hand side, we should be able to find a collectible on the ground near a skeleton. Next up, what we'll do is actually go and complete this old derrick side mission. And we will drop down. There's going to be a bunch of enemies and a bunch of things to do here, which I've already done. But as you make your way to the back here, you will climb up the ladder, and then you'll be able to interact with the yellow panel on the part of the ship. And this is the way that you would actually end the side mission, and this will get you the radiator component. Then what we can do is move on to the north tower and go to the direction of the North Communications Tower. But before kind of heading towards it, there is a little bit of a split path. You can go either left or right as you enter the area. What we want to do is go to the right in order to find the North Tower substation. This one is similar to the East Tower substation in the fact that it will show up on your map when you're near it, and it also does have a collectible. For this one, you don't have to go inside. Instead, the note is posted on the wall near the substation, so just make sure you pick up that note.
Look, by the door. There's a note.
We will then end up in Act 2, Chapter 5, and this is another linear mission, so we won't be showing the map or anything. You'll enter a room with a large gate in front of you and some lasers, and right as you enter that room, you actually want to do a 180 and turn around and leave that room. Once you leave that room, follow the path, and then take a right-hand turn and go down the hill here. And you'll notice that there should be a little bit of a blinking collectible sitting right here in the ice, and this is a helmet. This one can be really tricky because it basically forces you to backtrack right after a cutscene. Then what we can do is we'll come into this room and clear out all of the ice and the jets from the bottom of this area, allowing us to now walk through. You're supposed to walk through and go to the left, but instead we'll stay to the right and go up this ramp and into this side room where we kick down the door. After kicking down the door, walk forward, and near the back end of this area, we can find another subject analysis. You'll then have a short cutscene, and you will spawn in a room with a yellow tube basically directly in front of you. And right at your own feet, just to your right-hand side, you can find the subject analysis on the floor here. You do end up coming back through this area in the other direction, but this one can be very tricky if you don't pay attention. Next up, we will reach an area where we can stim through the room in order to get to the other side of this icy room, and then we can use our pulse in order to, or our shock trap rather, in order to power the generator. And right next to the generator, you can find the Lexigram Board. You'll then end up through some more cutscenes and end up kind of, I believe, chasing Niles. And you'll end up in this area where you go through. You might need to use your stim occasionally to make sure you can survive all the ice. There will be a bunch of these frozen guys that you can kind of melee if you want. And you'll end up in this room where, again, you probably want to stim. And on the left-hand side from where you enter, you can find another subject analysis sitting on a table before continuing on to the next area as part of the main mission. Once you reach the main area, you should notice that one of the windows opens up. You'll notice a scientist next to some control boards, and you'll then have an open door you can now go through in order to proceed. After you go through that door, make sure you find the sketchbook on the left near the ground. We're then in Act 3, Chapter 1. The first couple here are all very linear. As soon as you spawn into this new act, there should be a collectible very close by near the bar, near a couple of wine bottles. You'll want to grab it. And then what we can do is we're going to kind of do all 5 of these in a row because they're all very close to each other. So once we grab the collectible near the bar there, we can go down the steps and enter into the kind of main lobby area. There should be a main objective to our left and to our right, but we'll kind of ignore them for now and head straight into the passport/baggage claim. And as you turn to your right-hand side, make sure you notice this small book sitting on a little like wheelie wagon. And then what we can do is turn around and go to the left and go through like the security metal detectors into arrivals and gate 1. Turn to the right-hand side, and instead of going through the door to your left, make sure you continue past that and go forward into this side room. In this side room, you should be able to find another collectible in the back corner sitting on a table. We'll then walk outside, and there will be a bunch of weapons in front of us, including the new claw, which I believe is maybe the worst gun in the game, in my opinion. However, there is a claw relic gun, which is really good. I'll show that off in another video. But as we come outside, you'll take a little bit of a left-hand turn, a little bit of a right-hand turn. Sitting on a desk by a tent here, you can find the Nomad's Creed. And last but not least, as you make your way outside, you'll end up with the skiff directly in front of you and a large ship. There will be some hangars. I think they're marked 3, 4, and 5. We want to head to the middle one, which I believe is marked 4, as you see on screen. There's a helicopter inside, and there is a small rack to its left where you can pick up the Astounding Lightning Rangers comic book or poster. I'm then going to ignore any open world collectibles and go straight to Act 3, Chapter 2, which is another linear level. You can grab a bunch of stuff on your way here, but we're going to organize it in the guide so that you can follow along as easily as possible. Once you enter your first kind of control room, make sure that you find the collectible on the ground near the skeleton before opening the door to move on to the next area, which is this area. Instead of hopping on the orange platform for it to carry you across, what we're going to quickly do is drop down to the right-hand side and then kind of go underneath where our team is standing and waiting for us. And here we can find the directive collectible sitting on a barrel. You'll then make your way through a series of hallways and end up in an area with a bunch of enemies right here, and you can drop down and try to stealth them or just fight them. And you would proceed to the left, but instead if you go to the right and kind of mantle up this small area, you can find a back room, pretty cleverly hidden. In the back room you can find the space mission brief sitting on a desk in the back. You will then go through a door, and as soon as you go through that door, you'll end up seeing exactly what I see, which is the giant missile to my left, as well as some sandbags to my right. If I mantle over the sandbags in the corner, I can find the Loyalist order from Major Tolly here before moving on. You'll then end up going through another series of like hallways and things, and you'll end up in this room with the red sand at your feet, the giant kind of missile opening in front of you, and a tank directly on ground floor in front of you. And here you can find some cog tags, or some UIR tags rather, on one of the people here. You'll then eventually reach a long and narrow stairway that leads on its way down. You'll take a left-hand turn into the room in order to proceed with the mission. And in this room, you can find the Major's speech sitting on a kind of control console. Now, this next collectible is technically in Chapter 3, but I've put an asterisk here because you can actually grab it during Chapter 2, so I'd probably recommend doing it during Chapter 2, as the mission will literally bring you here into the same room as the collectible. You'll end up going across the desert and finding your way at the turntable station, and as part of your mission, you'll end up going into this back room at the end of the area. And in this room, you want to make sure you pick up the UIR tag for Lieutenant Melik. It's going to be sitting in the corner of the room from the far end of where you entered. Keep in mind, you can come back here at any point. However, this is literally a part of Chapter 2, so I'd recommend you grab it during that chapter. However, feel free to come back if you want. Make sure you pick up the collectible before sending Jack over to do the interactable thing in the corner there, though. At this point of the video, we're going to go wild in Act 3, Chapter 3, and find all of the collectibles in the open world. We're actually going to start from the airbase and then work our way from left to right on the map. At the end of Chapter 2, you'll kind of end up near the middle. But you can find this location here, which is a water pump station. I've shown you exactly where on screen you can find it. After you clear it out of all of the enemies and open the door at the very end, you can find the Nomad's sketchbook sitting in the room where there is a person here to greet you. So make sure you grab the sketchbook before you leave and go hunting for more collectibles. This chapter was really a nightmare to find everything in, by the way. Next up, we can find the City Ruins side mission on the map, shown exactly where it is. As you get here, you'll go through and kill a bunch of enemies. Additionally, you'll hack or get Jack to kind of weld through a door, or I don't know, laser cut through the door. You'll end up going through this door near the very end of the mission. You can take a right-hand turn rather, and go up some stairs. Directly in front of you, you can find the UIR LC Circuit A1. At the end of all of these types of side missions, you will find one of these data chip collectibles. Keep that in mind. Don't worry, I'll show you exactly where all of them are, but there's a little bit of a pattern. And then from this collectible location, head back to your skiff, and on your way back to the skiff, turn kind of behind you and look to your right over your shoulder in order to find a large flag, which is also a collectible. We'll want to grab that before we hop back on our skiff and go to the next area. The next collectible we'll grab is right outside of the rocket hangar. Now, we've already technically been here as part of Chapter 2, but this one's kind of out of the way and really technically a part of the open world, so that's why it's here in our video. Act 3, Chapter 3, right outside of the rocket hangar, you can find a collectible on a downed UIR. There is a little bit of a weird kind of invisible wall here that will push you out of the way sometimes, so make sure you walk around it. And just to the right of the gate you use to enter this area, you can find it. That was actually my last collectible, and I grabbed the achievement there. Now, I'm going to open up the map here, and I am south of the harbor docks. You can do the harbor docks as part of a side mission, but there is no collectible there. And there are some wrecked tanks in the sand here. You can see off in the distance, you can see the bridge, which we kind of worried about earlier in this act. And near one of the tanks, there is a collectible we can grab. So we'll want to make sure we do that. This one's also very well hidden, and you don't really have to ever come here to this location. So you really have to explore if you want to find this one. Next up, we are at the artillery barrage, or artillery battery on the map. This one is just a little bit southeast of the bridge that we used in Chapter 2. Inside of here, we'll have a bunch of enemies. It's basically a little bit of a side mission. We'll clear everyone out. And there are 2 collectibles to grab inside of this area once you're here. You'll want to find one of the circuits. sitting on the table directly in front of you. And additionally, you can also find another collectible right next to the circuit, just to the left of it.
Del, got another LC circuit here.
Nice. Well, that's it. Nothing else here for us.
Then let's head out.
Next up, I'll show you exactly where on the map I am, but I am at another side mission. This one is the Cargo Shipwreck Scavenger mission. This is our third scavenger mission we've done, and as you enter, as always, a little bit of a pattern here. A ton of enemies. We've killed them all, and once we've killed them all, we can grab some collectibles in the area. So we'll drop down and keep on the right-hand side. It gets a little hazy here because I think of the wind. There's a shipment container on the right-hand side. We can enter into it and find a captain's log on the floor of the shipment container. And we are now at 82 out of 90. And additionally in this area, at the very end, there is a LC circuit, which is, again, a part of this side mission. In order to complete it, you'll need to pick up this circuit. So pick up the circuit at the very kind of far end from where we entered, next to one of the nomads. So next up, as a part of Chapter 3, you'll be told to go to the Cosmonaut Training Facility as your main objective. You can technically come here before it's your objective, but there's really no point. So as you reach the Cosmonaut Training Facility, before entering the building with the giant astronaut statue in front of it, we'll want to go to the right-hand side and make sure to find the Lightmass missile fragment sitting on the ground. Then we'll go inside and basically do a little bit of a mission inside of Chapter 3. We'll end up in this room with a giant centrifuge in the middle, and it will eventually break, allowing us to go to a new area. As we kind of enter that new area, our main objective is to interact with something on the right on the ground. We're going to instead interact with the collectible on the left on the ground here. Last but not least, our final collectible for Act 3, Chapter 3 comes at a point where our main mission is to interact with the Nomad Convoy. And as we approach this area, we should be given the mission over our radio, over our walkie-talkie, and we'll go here in order to basically help out some of the nomads. Just as we enter this area, turn to the right-hand side and make sure you find the visor sitting in the sand on the ground near this tank. We can now proceed and finish up Chapter 3, easily the longest chapter in the game, and then make our way to Act 4, Chapter 1, where we'll reach a building and work our way through the building. You'll notice a piano and then a staircase where we work our way down. You have to go through this area, so don't worry, you won't miss it. As we reach the bottom of the stairs, directly in front of us, on the right-hand side, on the ground, find the encyclopedia. You'll then reach this outdoor area with a building directly in front of you and your main objective to your left. Instead, go to the right. There is a little bit of a cliff here with the ruptured gear helmet. We are almost done with the guide, guys. I would really appreciate if you drop a like on this video right now before we finish up. It really does help the video out. Then what we can do is, right as we approach the tomb directly in front of us, we can find our last two collectibles here. Instead of going through the door of the tomb, keep to the right and you'll notice some cars. Here you'll want to kind of turn around and face one of the front of the cars in order to find the cog tags of Min Young Kim. A pretty cool little Easter egg for Gears fans. Last but not least, find the restoration notice on the right hand side of the door before entering. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's 90 out of 90 collectibles. I might make a components guide if there is enough demand. We'll see. Thank you so much for watching again. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Special shout out to all the amazing people on Patreon for supporting the show. Special thanks to Double O and Loveboat Gopher. And hopefully I see you guys soon. Peace.